Before you ever speak to a woman, she has already received information about you, not through your words, but through the way you carry yourself, your posture, your expression, your eye contact, your pace, your ability to remain relaxed, and even the way you respond to a moment of silence can communicate confidence or insecurity before the conversation has truly begun. This is why learning how to talk to women does not begin with memorizing clever lines. It begins with learning how to become comfortable in your own presence. Many men make conversation unnecessarily difficult because they approach it as a performance. They believe they must say something extraordinary, make her laugh constantly, or somehow prove that they are more interesting than everyone else around them. The moment this happens, conversation stops being natural. Instead of listening to what she is saying, they are monitoring themselves. They are thinking about the next sentence, wondering whether she is impressed, analyzing every expression on her face, and worrying about whether they are making the right impression. That pressure creates awkwardness because genuine communication requires presence, not performance. The first shift is simple. Stop treating the interaction like an audition. You are not standing in front of a judge who will decide whether you are worthy. You are meeting another human being. Your purpose is not to force her to like you. Your purpose is to discover whether the two of you actually enjoy talking to each other. When you understand this, something inside you becomes calmer. You stop chasing approval and start becoming curious. You stop trying to control the outcome and start paying attention to the person in front of you. This is where real confidence begins. Confidence does not mean you never feel nervous. You may still feel your heart beating faster. You may still wonder what she thinks of you. You may still experience uncertainty. But confidence means you do not allow those feelings to control your behavior. You can feel nervous and still speak clearly. You can feel uncertain and still maintain comfortable eye contact. You can experience rejection and still walk away with your self-respect intact. Your body language should support this mindset. Keep your posture natural rather than rigid. Relax your shoulders. Avoid constantly looking at your phone because you feel uncomfortable. Make eye contact, but do not stare. Let your facial expressions respond naturally to what she says. Speak at a comfortable pace instead of rushing through your words because you are afraid of silence. When you slow down, you give yourself time to think, and you give the other person room to respond. But remember that confidence is not domination. A man who interrupts constantly, speaks louder than everyone else, or tries to control every part of the conversation may actually be hiding insecurity. Genuine confidence allows another person to have space. You do not need to fill every silence. You do not need to tell the funniest story in the room. You do not need to prove that you know everything. You can listen, pause, ask a question, and allow the conversation to develop naturally. One of the most powerful forms of confidence is being comfortable when you do not know what to say next. Most people fear silence because they believe silence means failure. It does not. Sometimes a brief pause simply means both people are thinking. If you become comfortable with that moment, you remove a tremendous amount of pressure from yourself. You realize that conversation is not a performance that must run perfectly from beginning to end. It is an exchange that naturally rises, pauses, changes direction, and continues. Another important part of confidence is becoming less dependent on the outcome. If your entire sense of worth depends on whether a woman finds you attractive, every interaction will feel like a high-stakes test. A delayed reply will feel personal. A short answer will feel like rejection. A disagreement will feel like an attack on your identity. But when your confidence comes from within, you can accept another person's response without allowing it to define you. Interest must be mutual. You cannot force genuine connection, and you should never need to. This is why your life outside dating matters so much. Build confidence through things that have nothing to do with romantic attention. Develop useful skills. Take care of your body. Pursue meaningful goals. Read, learn, build friendships. Become comfortable being alone. Keep promises to yourself. Every time you improve your own life, you create internal evidence that you are capable and valuable. Then talking to a woman becomes something you participate in, not something you desperately need to succeed at. You also become more authentic when you stop trying to imitate someone else. Do not copy another man's personality because you think women will respond to it. If you are naturally thoughtful, be thoughtful. If you are playful, allow your humor to appear. If you are passionate about something, talk about it with genuine enthusiasm. Authenticity does not mean saying everything that comes into your mind. It means your words and behavior are consistent with who you actually are. The goal is not to become a perfect conversationalist. The goal is to become present enough that you can listen, respond, express yourself, and remain calm regardless of the outcome. When you reach that point, you no longer need a script. You have something more valuable than a collection of lines. You have the ability to connect naturally. And once you are comfortable enough to stop performing, the next skill is learning how to understand the woman in front of you instead of constantly trying to impress her. Once you stop treating conversation like a performance, you discover something far more powerful. People become interesting when you stop thinking about how you appear to them and start paying attention to who they actually are. This is especially important when learning how to talk to women. The goal is not to collect impressive questions or manufacture attraction through rehearsed techniques. The goal is to become genuinely curious. When a woman feels that you are listening rather than simply waiting for your opportunity to speak, the entire conversation changes. Many men make the same mistake. They prepare questions in their heads, ask one after another, and then immediately move to the next because they are afraid of silence. Where are you from? What do you do? What kind of music do you like? These questions are not wrong, but when they are delivered like an interview, the conversation becomes predictable. The deeper skill is learning to listen for something meaningful inside her answer and allowing that detail to lead naturally into the next part of the conversation. Suppose she tells you that she recently started learning photography. You could simply ask another standard question, or you could become curious about what attracted her to it. Maybe she mentions traveling, creativity, or wanting to capture memories. Each answer contains another doorway. You do not need to force the conversation forward because she is already giving you material. Your job is to notice it. This is why listening is more powerful than trying to sound impressive. When you genuinely listen, you begin noticing the things people reveal indirectly. You notice what makes them excited. You notice which subjects make them speak faster. You notice what they laugh about, what they care about, and what experiences shape their perspective. You are no longer trying to control the conversation. You are discovering it. But genuine listening requires patience. Do not immediately turn everything she says into a story about yourself. If she tells you about an experience, resist the instinct to say, "That happened to me too," before she finishes. Sometimes you can relate later, but first allow her experience to exist on its own. Ask a thoughtful follow-up. Show that you understood what she meant. A simple response such as, "What made you decide to do that?" can create a much deeper conversation than a list of prepared questions. At the same time, listening does not mean becoming passive. A good conversation is an exchange, not an interrogation. Share your own thoughts and experiences when they naturally fit. If she tells you about a difficult decision, you can offer a perspective of your own. If she describes something funny, respond with genuine humor. If you disagree with an opinion, you can respectfully explain why. The goal is not constant agreement. It is creating a space where both people can express themselves without feeling judged. One of the most attractive qualities in conversation is the ability to make another person feel understood without pretending to agree with everything they say. You can say, "I can understand why you see it that way," even when your perspective is different. That kind of emotional intelligence creates trust because it communicates that disagreement does not automatically become conflict. You should also learn to recognize when someone wants to talk and when they do not. Respect is part of communication. If her answers are consistently short, she avoids engagement, or she clearly seems uncomfortable, do not keep pushing for attention. A confident person does not need to force a conversation. Give space. Genuine interest cannot be manufactured through persistence. Sometimes the strongest response is simply accepting that the interaction is not developing. This understanding protects you from another common mistake, overanalyzing every small signal. You do not need to decode every smile, emoji, pause, or movement as though it contains a secret message. Look at patterns instead. Does she contribute to the conversation? Does she ask questions about you? Does she willingly continue the interaction? Does she seem comfortable and engaged? Consistent behavior tells you far more than one isolated gesture. The deeper lesson is that women are not a puzzle you need to solve. They are individuals with different personalities, experiences, preferences, fears, ambitions, and values. What works naturally with one person may feel completely wrong with another. That is why memorizing universal formulas will always be less effective than developing social awareness. When you become curious about the individual rather than searching for a technique, you become a better communicator. There is also power in remembering details. If she mentioned something important earlier, bring it up naturally later, not as a tactic, but because you actually listened. Remembering that she had an important presentation, a family event, or a personal goal shows that her words mattered to you. People notice when someone remembers what they said. It creates a sense of genuine attention that no rehearsed compliment can replace. And do not underestimate the value of simple curiosity. Ask questions that invite stories rather than one-word answers. Instead of asking only what she does, ask what she enjoys about it. Instead of asking where she traveled, ask what experience stayed with her. Instead of asking what she likes, ask why it matters to her. The why behind an answer often reveals far more than the answer itself. When you learn to listen this way, conversation stops feeling like something you must control. You become responsive rather than rehearsed. You notice opportunities for humor, storytelling, deeper questions, and meaningful disagreement. Most importantly, you allow the other person to feel that she is being seen as an individual rather than treated like a target you are trying to impress. That is the foundation of real connection. Not saying the perfect thing, but paying enough attention to understand the person saying it. And once you know how to understand the person in front of you, the next step is learning how to recognize genuine interest without turning every signal into a mystery. Once you learn to listen instead of performing, another important skill becomes necessary: learning to recognize interest without becoming obsessed with every signal. Many men make conversation harder than it needs to be because they turn every small gesture into a mystery. A smile becomes proof of attraction. A delayed message becomes proof of rejection. A short answer becomes a reason to panic. A longer conversation becomes evidence that something significant must be happening. This constant analysis creates anxiety, and anxiety destroys the natural confidence you worked so hard to develop. The wiser approach is to stop searching for hidden meanings in isolated moments and start observing consistent behavior. One smile does not tell you everything. One message does not tell you everything. One conversation does not tell you everything. People have different personalities, moods, responsibilities, and communication styles. What matters is the pattern. Does she willingly continue the conversation? Does she ask questions about you? Does she contribute instead of leaving you to carry everything? Does she appear comfortable spending time with you? Does she initiate contact sometimes? These patterns provide far more useful information than trying to decode every individual gesture. This is where emotional intelligence becomes more valuable than cleverness. You need to be able to notice interest without becoming dependent on it. If someone is engaged, respond naturally. If she seems curious, continue getting to know her. If she gives little effort, do not chase endlessly trying to manufacture something that is not there. Confidence means understanding that connection requires participation from both the sides. You can express interest, but you cannot create another person's feelings for them. One of the biggest mistakes is confusing politeness with attraction. Someone can smile, answer your questions, or have a pleasant conversation without wanting anything romantic. That is completely normal. Not every positive interaction is an invitation for more. Learning this protects both your confidence and the other person's boundaries. Instead of assuming what she wants, pay attention to whether her behavior consistently shows a willingness to continue the connection. The same principle works in reverse. Genuine interest usually does not need to be forced into existence. When someone is interested, There is often some form of reciprocity. She may ask questions, remember details, continue conversations, suggest spending time together, or make an effort to stay connected. The exact behavior will differ from person to person, but the common element is participation. Interest tends to create movement from both sides rather than requiring one person to constantly push everything forward. This is why you should never measure your worth by one person's response. If a woman is not interested, it does not automatically mean you are unattractive, boring, or inadequate. It may simply mean the connection is not right. Compatibility is not a universal ranking system. Two good people can meet and discover that their personalities, values, timing, or goals do not fit. That is not failure, it is information. The ability to accept disinterest calmly is actually a powerful form of confidence. You can hear no without becoming bitter. You can accept distance without trying to punish someone. You can walk away without creating drama. This maturity changes the way you communicate because you no longer approach every interaction with desperation. You become free to express interest honestly because you are not terrified of the outcome. There is also a difference between showing interest and chasing validation. Showing interest means communicating that you enjoy talking to someone and would like to know them better. Chasing validation means repeatedly seeking reassurance that you are attractive, wanted, or important. The first creates connection. The second creates pressure. If you constantly need confirmation, the other person eventually feels responsible for managing your confidence. That is not attraction. That is emotional dependence. Another important skill is learning to respect boundaries immediately. If she says she is not interested, accept it. If she does not want to continue a conversation, give her space. If she declines an invitation, do not pressure her for an explanation. Respect does not reduce your confidence, it demonstrates it. A secure person understands that another individual's choice does not threaten their identity. You should also avoid manipulating situations to test whether someone cares. Do not deliberately disappear just to provoke a reaction. Do not create jealousy simply to measure interest. Do not pretend to be unavailable when you are not. These tactics create confusion rather than trust. If you want to know where you stand, healthy communication is far more powerful than psychological games. Sometimes the most useful thing you can do is simply ask. If you have developed enough comfort with someone, you can communicate your intentions respectfully instead of endlessly analyzing signals. Clarity may feel more vulnerable than guessing, but it saves you from building an entire story around assumptions. You can say that you enjoy spending time together and would like to see her again. Then allow her answer to be what it is. This mindset also keeps you grounded when attraction is strong. When you really like someone, your imagination can become more powerful than reality. You begin filling gaps with assumptions. You imagine future possibilities before you truly know the person. You interpret every positive moment as confirmation. Slow down. Keep discovering who she actually is. Attraction should encourage curiosity, not eliminate judgment. The strongest communicator is not the person who can predict every signal. It is the person who can observe, communicate, and respond without losing emotional balance. You do not need certainty before every move. You need enough awareness to notice reciprocity, enough confidence to express yourself, and enough self-respect to step back when interest is not mutual. Once you stop trying to decode every tiny signal and start observing patterns, conversations become much easier. You stop living inside your assumptions and start responding to reality. And once you can recognize interest without overthinking it, you can focus on creating conversations that feel genuinely engaging, playful, and memorable. Once you understand how to recognize genuine interest without obsessing over every signal, the next skill is learning how to create a conversation that feels alive. This is where many people become trapped by the idea that they need perfect lines. They search for clever openings, memorized jokes, or some secret phrase that will instantly make a woman interested. But real conversation does not work like a script. The strongest conversations are created through curiosity, personality, timing, humor, and the willingness to respond naturally to what is happening in the moment. A conversation becomes memorable when it moves beyond information and begins revealing personality. Asking someone what they do is easy. Asking what they enjoy about what they do is more interesting. Asking where someone lives gives you a fact. Asking what they like about their city may give you a story. Facts keep a conversation alive for a few minutes. Stories, opinions, emotions, and experiences give it depth. This is why you should learn to ask questions that invite more than a one-word answer. Instead of collecting information, look for opportunities to understand perspective. If she says she loves traveling, you might ask what place surprised her the most. If she says she enjoys reading, you might ask what book changed the way she thinks. If she mentions a hobby, ask what originally made her interested in it. These questions are not complicated, but they communicate genuine curiosity, and genuine curiosity is far more powerful than rehearsed charm. At the same time, do not turn curiosity into interrogation. A conversation should move in both directions. Share your own experiences. Tell stories. Express opinions. Let your personality appear. If she talks about a difficult experience, you can explain how you handled something similar. If she makes a joke, respond playfully. If she expresses an unusual opinion, you can respectfully challenge it. Conversation becomes engaging when both people contribute something of themselves. One of the most attractive qualities in communication is the ability to be playful without becoming disrespectful. Humor can reduce tension, create familiarity, and make an ordinary interaction memorable. But humor does not require insulting someone or trying to make yourself look superior. The best humor often comes from observing the situation, laughing at yourself, noticing something unexpected, or playfully exaggerating an innocent moment. The purpose is not to put someone down. It is to create a shared moment. You also need to understand the difference between confidence and performance. If you are constantly trying to be funny, constantly telling stories, or constantly proving how interesting you are, the other person can feel the effort behind it. You do not need to entertain every second. Some of the most meaningful moments in conversation are quiet. You can listen to her answer, think for a moment, smile, then respond. Relaxed communication feels more genuine because neither person feels pressured to perform. Another powerful skill is expressing your own perspective. Many people become so afraid of disagreement that they agree with everything. They think constant agreement will make them more likable, but connection does not require pretending to share every opinion. If she has a different view, you can say, "I see it differently," and explain why. If you disagree respectfully, the conversation may actually become more interesting. The goal is not to win an argument. The goal is to discover how each person thinks. This is also where storytelling becomes important. Instead of listing achievements, tell stories that reveal your personality. Talk about a mistake that taught you something. Describe an unexpected experience. Explain why you became interested in something. Share a moment that made you laugh. A good story gives another person a window into your character. It allows them to understand not just what you have done, but how you think and feel. Do not exaggerate your experiences to appear more impressive. If you have to invent a personality to keep someone's attention, you are building a connection on something false. Authenticity becomes easier when you stop trying to compete with imaginary versions of other men. You do not need to be the funniest, richest, most adventurous, or most confident person she has ever met. You simply need to be comfortable enough to let your real personality come forward. Another mistake is trying to move the conversation toward romance too quickly. Attraction can develop naturally, but pressure can destroy it. Pay attention to the comfort of the interaction. If both people are engaged, laughing, asking questions, and willingly continuing the conversation, let it develop. There is no need to force a particular outcome. Sometimes the strongest conversations are powerful precisely because neither person is rushing them towards something. You should also learn to leave a conversation gracefully. A good interaction does not need to continue forever. If the energy begins fading, ending naturally can be better than desperately searching for another topic. You can say you enjoyed talking and continue another time if there is mutual interest. Knowing when to end a conversation demonstrates social awareness because you understand that quality matters more than duration. The deeper lesson is simple. Conversation becomes attractive when you stop trying to manufacture attraction. Be curious, be expressive, listen carefully, share honestly, use humor naturally, respect differences, give the other person space. Allow the interaction to become what it is instead of forcing it to become what you imagined. When you communicate this way, you are no longer searching for the perfect line. You are creating a genuine exchange between two people, and that is far more memorable than any rehearsed technique. And once you can create engaging conversation naturally, the next step is learning when to pursue the connection and when to step back with confidence and self-respect. Once you know how to create an engaging conversation, another skill becomes essential, knowing when to move forward and when to step back. This is where self-respect becomes one of the most important parts of learning how to talk to women. Many men believe that persistence is always attractive. They assume that if they keep messaging, keep explaining themselves, keep asking for another chance, or keep trying to prove their interest, eventually the other person will change her mind. But genuine connection cannot be forced. When interest is mutual, you should not have to carry the entire interaction alone. Pay attention to reciprocity. If you are always initiating the conversation, always asking the questions, always suggesting plans, and always trying to keep the interaction alive while she contributes very little, that pattern is telling you something. Does not necessarily mean she dislikes you, but it may mean that her level of interest is different from yours. Instead of becoming frustrated, accept the information. Confidence means being able to recognize reality without trying to negotiate with it. This is one of the clearest differences between confidence and neediness. A confident man can show interest openly without becoming dependent on the response. He can say, "I enjoyed talking with you," or suggest meeting again, and then allow her to decide. He does not send 10 more messages because the first one was unanswered. He does not invent excuses for why she has repeatedly avoided making plans. He does not become angry because someone did not return his interest. He understands that attraction must be freely chosen by both people. There is dignity in giving someone space. If she says she is busy, believe her rather than immediately assuming she is testing you. If she declines an invitation, accept the answer respectfully. If she clearly communicates that she is not interested, do not attempt to convince her. A person's boundaries are not challenges to overcome. They are information to respect. This mindset makes communication healthier because you stop seeing rejection as something that must be defeated. At the same time, stepping back does not mean playing games. You should not deliberately disappear to make someone anxious. You should not ignore messages simply to create artificial scarcity. You should not try to make her jealous to prove that you are desirable. These tactics may create temporary confusion, but confusion is not genuine connection. If you are interested, communicate that interest honestly. If the interest is not returned, step away honestly. There is far more strength in clarity than in manipulation. Another important skill is learning not to personalize every change in someone's behavior. People have responsibilities, stress, family situations, work, personal problems, and changing priorities. One delayed message does not automatically mean rejection. One quiet day does not require a dramatic response. Look for patterns rather than isolated moments. If someone consistently makes an effort, occasional delays mean very little. But if someone consistently avoids engagement, repeatedly cancels without suggesting another time, or gives minimal effort, you should pay attention to the pattern. This prevents you from becoming emotionally reactive. Instead of thinking, "Why isn't she responding? What did I do wrong?" You can simply observe. You do not need to invent a story. You do not need to attack yourself or blame her. You can recognize that the connection may not be developing in the direction you hoped and make a mature decision about where to invest your energy. Self-respect also means refusing to become someone you are not just to keep another person's attention. If you have to constantly change your opinions, hide your personality, pretend to enjoy things you dislike, or tolerate behavior that violates your values simply because you fear losing her, you are not building a healthy connection. You are trading your identity for approval. A relationship built on that foundation eventually becomes exhausting because you have to keep performing the version of yourself that you think will be accepted. Healthy attraction allows both people to remain individuals. You can have different interests. You can disagree. You can maintain your friendships and personal goals. You can say no. You can have standards. You can communicate what you want without demanding that the other person provide it. This balance creates respect because neither person has to disappear inside the relationship. There is also strength in knowing when to end an interaction gracefully. Not every conversation needs to become a relationship. Not every attraction needs to become a commitment. Sometimes two people simply do not fit. Instead of turning that reality into resentment, accept it and continue forward. The ability to walk away peacefully protects your confidence and prevents temporary disappointment from becoming bitterness. Remember, the goal of talking to women is not to convince every woman to like you. That would be impossible, and it would make every interaction exhausting. The goal is to communicate confidently, discover compatibility, and build connections where interest and effort exist on both sides. When the connection is mutual, continue nurturing it. When it is not, respect the answer and preserve your dignity. The strongest form of confidence is being able to express interest without losing yourself in the outcome. You can care without clinging. You can pursue without pressuring. You can be vulnerable without becoming dependent. You can hear no without feeling worthless. And you can walk away without needing revenge, explanations, or another opportunity to prove yourself. When you understand this, talking to women becomes much less complicated. You stop chasing certainty and start responding to reality. You stop measuring your worth through someone else's attention and start choosing relationships that genuinely deserve your time. And once you can communicate your interest while protecting your self-respect, the final step is to build a life and identity so strong that confidence in conversation becomes a natural reflection of who you are. The final step in learning how to talk to women is understanding that your conversations become much easier when you build a life you genuinely respect. Many people try to improve their dating skills without improving themselves. They search for better opening lines, better messages, better ways to appear confident, and better techniques for keeping someone's attention. But if your entire confidence depends on how another person responds to you, no technique will give you lasting security. The strongest conversations come from a person who already has direction, interests, standards, and a life that feels meaningful. Think about what happens when you have nothing going on in your own life. You meet someone you find attractive, and suddenly the interaction becomes extremely important. You begin worrying about every word. You want her attention because you have made that attention responsible for your excitement. You check your phone repeatedly. You replay conversations in your head. You wonder whether she likes you. You become afraid of saying the wrong thing. The problem is not that you need a better line. The problem is that too much of your emotional world has been placed on one interaction. Now imagine the opposite. You have goals you care about. You are developing skills. You have friends, interests, responsibilities, and experiences that make your days meaningful. You enjoy your own company. You are working towards something that matters to you. When you meet a woman, you are interested in knowing her, but you do not need her attention to give your life value. That difference creates a completely different kind of confidence. This is why becoming interesting is more powerful than trying to appear interesting. You cannot manufacture depth with a few clever sentences. Depth comes from living. Travel if you can. Read widely. Learn a skill. Explore new interests. Have conversations with different kinds of people. Take on challenges that make you uncomfortable. Develop opinions through experience rather than simply repeating what everyone else believes. The more you experience, learn, and grow, the more naturally you will have something to talk about. You also become better at storytelling because your life contains stories. You can talk about something unexpected that happened while traveling. You can describe a mistake that taught you a lesson. You can explain why you became passionate about a particular subject. You can share a funny experience with a friend. You do not need to exaggerate these experiences. Their value comes from the meaning you found in them and the personality you reveal while telling them. But building a strong life does not mean trying to become impressive for women. That would simply create another performance. Your goals should exist even when nobody is watching. Exercise because you value your health. Learn because you enjoy becoming more capable. Work hard because you want freedom and purpose. Develop your career because you want to create something meaningful. Build friendships because human connection matters. When these things are pursued for their own value, they strengthen your identity naturally. A strong identity also gives you standards. You begin understanding what kind of people you want around you and what kind of behavior you will accept. You become less desperate for attention because you are no longer willing to sacrifice your values simply to keep someone interested. You can appreciate a woman without putting her above yourself. You can admire her personality without losing your own. You can be attracted to someone while still asking whether the two of you actually fit. This creates a healthier form of attraction because there is no need to manipulate. You do not have to pretend to be unavailable. You do not have to create jealousy. You do not have to use calculated silence. You can simply communicate clearly and allow the other person to respond freely. If she is interested, you continue discovering each other. If she is not, you accept it and continue living your life. Your identity remains intact either way. Another part of building yourself is learning emotional control. A woman should not become responsible for regulating your confidence. If she compliments you, appreciate it. If she disagrees with you, listen. If she needs space, respect it. If she rejects you, accept it. Your emotional stability should not depend on receiving constant reassurance. When you can manage your own emotions, conversations become lighter because you are not secretly asking the other person to make you feel worthy. This also allows you to become genuinely curious about women as individuals. You stop approaching every woman with the same expectations because you are not simply looking for someone to fill a role in your life. You want to discover who she actually is. What does she value? What makes her laugh? What experiences shaped her? What kind of future does she imagine? What does she care about when nobody is trying to impress anyone? These questions create far deeper connections than superficial attraction alone. The ultimate goal is not to become someone who can talk to every woman. That is not realistic, and it is not necessary. The goal is to become someone who can enter a conversation without fear, express himself without pretending, listen without judgment, recognize interest without obsession, respect boundaries without resentment, and walk away from incompatibility without losing his confidence. When you build that kind of identity, your communication changes naturally. You speak with more calmness because you are not desperate for approval. You listen more carefully because you are genuinely curious. You tell better stories because you have experiences worth sharing. You handle rejection better because your life has meaning beyond romance. And you become more attractive not because you learned a trick, but because you became a person with direction. So stop asking, what can I say to make her like me? Ask a deeper question. What kind of person am I becoming? Because the quality of your conversations will eventually reflect the quality of your inner world. Build a life you respect, develop a personality you are comfortable expressing, and become someone whose confidence does not disappear when attention does. Then talking to women stops being a desperate search for the perfect words and becomes what it should have been all along: a simple, confident, respectful conversation between two people discovering whether they genuinely connect.